call the meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on, the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting, April 8th of 2024.
I move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item is the approval of general fund vouchers 81271 through 8130390 and wire transfers 202-40444 through 202-40499.
I move to approve the general fund vouchers and wire transfers as read.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Public comments? None. That moves us on to our spotlight of education. So academic goal setting and professional learning communities, or PLCs, in action in the 6th grade.
Okay, so we've got Mr.
Well, we had 5 minutes of my time around that way, so I don't bore you too long here, but
We're good. Yeah, so we've got Mr. Wyatt Kamanik here to share some, just some of the neat activities that he helped lead with the 6th grade crew last year that helped the kids experience some real academic success last year.
I won't bore you guys with reading everything I have on here, but I can probably make a slideshow too. But just for working, just letting you guys know we're still working hard to try to improve our forward test scores. Just kind of noticing, my first year last year was teaching math in Clear Lake, and I noticed the previous year that the 5th graders had a little bit below the state average, and just the kids knew more than they were showing. Fine, I can go on too. And I looked back with our WISE data and looked back in the last 3 years of taking testing, not counting 19-20 because we didn't take a test that year. We were averaging, right around that 18.4%, and a little below our state average. So just kind of a process that kind of work with Rachel and with Dale Rosine. Rachel Shreen's a teacher, grade 6, and with the administrators helping out too. Just try to find a way to bring those scores up. One thing that kind of stuck out to me is most kids that I talked to had never seen forward test results. They didn't have any reason to do it or any kind of results to what they did. So again, I had to have help from everyone, so I had to ask for money. I'm not good about asking for money. I don't like to do that kind of thing. But through Teresa and Chris, they were easy to work with to try to find some money for incentives for kids. We got the students involved. They looked at their scores. They said, well, I didn't know I was, here in the score. I didn't know I was low. So they kind of fired themselves up. They want to do better. And then with the kids and with teachers and with administration, we tried to kind of have a guinea pig class to see if we could change things by working hard. So some of the things we worked with was just, again, they gave money if we wanted to have some growth mindset posters, kind of working and change our mindset, our thinking, thinking that I can't do something, but I can't do something yet. I talked to Brian, was able to let me come over here and take kids this year for a possible incentive, was open to that. And Teresa was willing to trust us, which probably isn't easy trusting me, but she trusted me and just give it a try and see what happens there, I guess, huh? We tried to get feedback to kids, so again, that costs money. I know it's 8 cents a copy to give them a color copy and show them their FAFSA results, to show them their forward test results, and we worked with having a growth mindset too. We really pushed that, just having confidence. Once the kids get confidence, then things come easier for them. What's the saying from the Duke basketball coach? Making.
Oh, yes.
And I didn't have that yet, but making
Too hard Do
Do
harder,
hard better.
do harder better, yeah.
Yeah.
Or hard easier, maybe making hard easier, or it was a quote that kind of sunk in because the kids, as we started working, it just became easier and easier for them. And we also kind of started, maybe got into November, December, kind of working on some goal setting too. Looked at what they had last year for the forward test, and then put a goal of 5% higher. And most of those kids, went way higher than that. We had just a goal to work towards, get a little better each year. Students, again, were willing to have that growth mindset. They set goals and worked towards them. They started working very hard when they had spare time. As a school district, I just set my timer, sorry. But we had an IXL program. When we had spare time, they'd find a skill that helped them become better, and they'd push themselves. So again, they were open to stretching their brains, making it bigger, making it think harder, and then pushing themselves. So there's a couple things they're working on. Ended up being the results. The kids worked super hard. They ended up, I didn't do ELA. I was more kind of thinking about the math part of it. But they ended up being a pretty high score, which was better than I was hoping for. I didn't know what to think of, what was a good option to look for, but they were, quite a bit higher than the state average there. They were, asking summertime, hey, what's our scores? Did you get our scores back? And they kind of came later, and then, some grades had their scores, but grade 6 didn't. So Brian let me come over in the fall and just give the kids their feedback. Of course, I grabbed the round papers, and then I had to have them sent over later on. But the intent was there, but I could show them that they met their year-end goal. Then it kind of got me thinking, hey, we have all this data, did pretty well, I thought. How they compare to other schools, in the Lakeland schools, before our middle border Lakeland kind of idea. This is before then. So kind of how we compared to other schools in the area, like with Lakeland schools, trying to figure out with basketball and football. But the kids did really well, I thought, in comparison. And I thought, well, how about schools around that aren't in the Lakeland Conference? Teresa wasn't very happy because I was below one grade, but we're working. We have our growth mindset, but didn't know why us did so well and why we couldn't catch them. But no, we just did very well. It was kind of good for me. I got to learn how to use Google and make these PowerPoints. I was on YouTube all the time trying to figure out how to change colors and data, and then so that's what I kind of have for you guys. They say it's kind of just the regular scores the kids had on average. They're pretty good. So that's what I got for you. I know you have a lot on the agenda and things, but any questions or concerns? Because of this, we kind of expanded it now. So now we had incentives for grades, 3 through 6 in our building. I think, Brian, you had some incentives too, just to see what we could do. I'm kind of competitive, and I really want us to be a 5-star school. So my goal before I'm done is to try to get us, hopefully, the 5-star status is my goal.
So these 6th grade scores are for the current 7th graders?
7th graders, yes. We won't have the new ones back until probably July.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of nice. We have a data team to kind of look at these things and figure out, where we're weak at, how we could, tweak things for next year to make it better. It's a 1-year snapshot, that's all I got, but maybe next year this time you'll be looking at contracts and saying, this guy is not very good, let's get rid of him, kind of find somebody else to come in here. I don't know what'll happen, but it's a 1-year snapshot, that's all I have, but we're trying.
Tell you, my kids talked about it a lot. Both upper and in junior high and elementary. They enjoyed the incentives. So
there's something to give them a reason, and they said a lot of kids, and I asked the kids, why are you all once middle year working hard? Well, I saw I was in the orange on Fastbridge. I don't want to be in the orange. I want to be in the blue. So that's a good reason to give that feedback back to kids, so they have their why doing things, I guess.
So then are you tracking this for 3rd through 6th grade just for math, or 3rd through 6th for ELA as well?
I just did mine.
Okay.
Yeah. Going forward, I could look into that. And it's once you get used to WISE Dash, you can spend a lot of time on there. You can get lost in it pretty quickly, but it's something I could do once it's made available. I know last year was a little later than normal, but I think it's easier having their data than me trying to count
Yeah.
every kid, because I make mistakes too, and get a lot of data. It's nice to have that first before but I could look into that too and report back again how things went too.
I think scores usually go out to schools in July, and then I think it'll get into WISE data in like probably September. Is that what you've heard this year?
We had it by our data day in mid-September.
Is it September, October? If it was September, you're right, I think.
Yeah, and then the official score, the report cards come out in November, so. But
Awesome.
That's great.
But it's something that we're working on, we're aware of, and we're trying to make it better for all to see, I guess, too, so.
Thank you very
No.
much.
Thank you,
Somehow that
Mr. Kamani.
competition did not get back to our family.
I'm glad you're back in this building.
What's that?
I said I'm glad you're back at Clearwood.
I'm glad to be back as well.
Yeah, we're glad to have Mr. Kamonic. It just, I think it shows, so, kind of in the title, it's, professional learning communities in action. That's an example of, a group of teachers collaborating and, using data and analyzing it, and then also working with the kids to, help them build, we call self-efficacy. They build an understanding that, okay, this is what I'm doing now. Well, this is what I think I can do, and building that intrinsic motivation to say, well, gee, I think I can do better than that. Just simply by looking at their own scores and their own feedback, that's a great example of a professional learning community at work in the 6th grade last year, and an impact. And those are dramatic results. And I think Mr. K will be the first to say, can't promise dramatic results like that every year. But caught lightning in a bottle last year with the kids and the teaching staff and the strategies they employed. And I mean, look at those are incredible increases that you just don't see.
Because it was Rachel and Dale and Chris and Ryan and Teresa and everybody else that was involved, Andrea. So it was the whole group that did it together.
Collaboration and data and.
I would like to say Wyatt really took the lead.
Yes,
though.
absolutely.
And it has trickled because of him down to 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. I know they all have the goal sheets and they've all looked at with their teachers and made those goals. And it's not even for forward, it's just learning goals on how to be a great learner. So we're just really excited, and this is going on record, to have Wyatt back.
And
I'll say the leader sometime mysteriously,
It trickled up into this building too because of the work that Wyatt did and the results that we got from it.
And the example of teacher leadership. We could have a staff meeting and the principal could come in or whatever and say, we're going to employ this strategy and we're going to set goals and do this, and it'll have some impact. Well, when a team of teachers do it and then they show and it works and they show by example, again, then it catches fire with the other staff. They've shown a way and a path for how to get there. So great
I think
work.
it also kind of had a kickstart because each kid got to set their own goals instead of you saying everyone has to reach this goal. It's you work on you work on, push yourself better no matter what level you're at.
And it was just, the goal was 5% in either or. That was an individual goal, and they had a group goal to be at 59% advanced and proficient. So they had to do it as themselves, or they could get a goal, as a team as well. So
Thank you.
it worked out good. It was a great group of kids that, having a couple of your kids in there kind of made it easier for me too, but it was a fun group of kids to work with. Very competitive kids, so they wanted to.
That doesn't hurt either.
Thank you.
Alright. Well, moving on to the annual reorganization of the board and election of officers. So we need to reslate who does what. I don't know if everybody, did Greg send out a text?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number at the end, he didn't have it.
And I just, for reference, if people had a chance to look at it, I just, put the relevant policies attached. Not that you got to sit and read those because we've done this, this group knows what they need to do. And just, the roles of all of the officers, but I think everyone here has a good understanding of that, So again, I'm just looking at the process, you can discuss it and agree by consensus and make one nomination as a group, or you can do a president first and then do each office one at a time. I think this group has typically done the first strategy, but either way is fine. So
That's your number, right? I was writing that.
Alright.
I'm fine with.
I'm waiting till. Is it 45?
Doing that.
with nothing.
I'm open to keeping it the same.
I'm okay with whatever you guys, yes,
Do you-
I will
here's-
do whatever.
You both have seniors, don't you, this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Do either of you want to sign diplomas? That's my question.
No, he's trying to get rid of the clerk job.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's kind of cool. My kids thought that was cool. So we can swap, and then you would be able to sign your daughter's.
Sure.
Yeah.
that
Stuff.
works.
Eve, what do we do, this, for the bank signature, this is for, just for checks?
Yes.
And who's, this is president,
That has to be the president,
And
clerk,
treasurer,
and treasurer?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
You wanna
We'll
it?
switch.
Okay, so our slating at this point is Greg for president, myself continue
Yep.
vice president, Matt will continue as the treasurer, Corey's going to move to the clerk, and
Yep.
Nettie, you're gonna move to member status? Okay.
Works for me.
Got all that, Eve?
Do
Okay.
we have to officially vote on this then too?
I think, yeah, there
Okay.
needs to be a motion and
I
a
move
second and
that Greg keeps the president, Christie is at VP, Matt is at treasurer, and Corey is at clerk.
I'll second it.
All right, properly moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are reorganized.
Now we have to redo the letterhead.
Yes.
Gotta redo the letterhead, and we gotta redo this signature. So before you guys leave tonight, we gotta have 3 people sign this document.
Okay.
So.
All for the diploma.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Approval of resignations.
Okay, so we have 2 resignations that came up in the last month. So the first one is Jason Sargent is resigning his athletic director position. So he'll continue on teaching math and coaching basketball and so on, but he made the decision this spring after thinking about it to step away from the AD role. And so and he will serve out the rest of the year. So he'll be AD
June 30th.
effective up until June 30th. So gives us some time, and he's still working at that. So, and then our other resignation is Laura Anderson, one of our route bus drivers. She's been driving for several years. I guess I'm sorry, before the meeting I didn't count up how many years. I think it's been 16 years. She was our longest tenured, and again, just kind of for a number of personal reasons, she just said, I think I just need to step away for a while, and submitted her resignation.
I have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation.
I'll second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. On to the approval of hires.
Okay, so we've got 4 hires here. It's always nice to have more hires than resignations. That's exciting. So the first one is exciting. So we have a speech language pathologist, that is Danielle Clark. So we've had our SLP open for a number of years. We've posted it for 3 or 4 years at least, and we've been using Launch Therapies, which is a telehealth online, virtual speech, and they've been wonderful to work with. They honestly have, and they've done a great job. But we have a preference for someone to be in person, to be able to go into classrooms, to be in the building, consult with teachers, and so on. So Danielle is a UW Eau Claire grad and grad school there, and has 2 years of experience in another district, looking to relocate to this area, which is closer to her home. So we're again excited, and it's a 0.7 position, so not full time, but it would be a 0.7 position. And then we've also got a head girls basketball coach. So we've got Melissa Lewis, or many people might know as Melissa Watashik or Mel Watashik.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she was one of the applicants, and we did interviews and selected, and like to recommend Mel as head girls basketball coach. And then we've got head girls volleyball coach. We interviewed candidates also last week, and we'd like to recommend Mark Vold as the candidate of choice there. And then we also have we've had posted bus driver route for the last 2+ weeks. This is a replacement for Mrs. Anderson, so I'd like to put forward Dominic Dimmler for that. So Dom has been subbing for us for a year and driving co-curricular routes, and has actually long-term subbed on the route. So we'd like to recommend So we got speech language, head girls basketball, head volleyball, and bus driver.
All right. Have a motion.
I move to approve the speech language pathologist hire, head girls basketball coach, head volleyball coach, and a new bus driver.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Up to strategic planning update.
Okay, so just want to give an update to the board. We've continued to work on this in the background as an admin team and a staff. Occasional updates to staff at staff meetings, and then the admin team has been continuing to get together on a weekly, bi-weekly basis and work on the strategic planning part, finishing the last two pillars of the scorecard, and then starting to review end of year data, or that'll be coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and then looking ahead to 2024-25, and continue to meet with Brad Sarin. Once a month we meet with him typically on Zoom. Exciting thing that happened last week that was pretty visible, or the last couple of weeks, was we sent out the school perception surveys. So that was a lot of communication and just a lot of efforts that went into that pretty fast, and so far so good. So those close on Wednesday. And then the biggest takeaway too is we're planning our next gallery walk for July 8th meeting. So that would be, we'd go over the final two pillars, we could talk about some of the year-end data, and then we'd begin to talk about next year's scorecard plan, or next year's scorecards, a preview of what we'd look at in the fall. The reason it's in July, oftentimes we might have had it in June, but because we did the school perception surveys, we won't get that data till the end of May, so we kind of like to have a little time to look at that and help us inform things before. So that's why we are saying the July meeting.
How are the numbers for that? Are you getting a lot
The
back?
surveys? Yeah, so they've been great. They give updates every few days. They send feedback back. I think we've had close to 80% of our staff participate, just shy of 400 of our students. So we did grades 4 through 12, right? Down to 4 or 5, yeah, 4 through 12. And parents, we had we're under 200 responses from parents. So,
And it ends Wednesday? I just
ends
got a
on
reminder
Wednesday.
today.
Another reminder today, I think. So, yeah. So they send them emails out directly. We've sent some emails out as a district to try to remind people too.
So then will the reports, they will go to administration, but will those reports also come to the board?
They sure can.
So that we can see the different
Categories.
and the different perceptions. I'm assuming they're different questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, all kinds of. And also one of the things that we discussed with perceptions was probably do, like, we usually do a retreat with the board. That might be a good topic, a good way to do that. Just kind of pour into that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, discussion of athletic conference affiliation.
Okay, so if you read the notes before the meeting, so we had the vote April 16th. Lakeland voted 17-2. There were 2 schools that did not vote in favor. Again, with the fast track process, you need a unanimous from the Lakeland, unanimous from Dunn St. Croix. Dunn St. Croix did go ahead and vote 9-0. There's been some conversations with a couple of schools, and I think there was kind of a long story. There's some misunderstandings with dates. Some of the schools, they thought that it was for 24-25 and had a lot of concerns about it being that fast. We said, yep, nope, we would have that same concern with changing the schedule up for next year. So it's clarified that it was 25-26 and talked through some other issues. And basically both schools said, you know what, we would reconsider and we would vote yes. So there has been a new call out to do actually a revote. So there'll be a second vote planned here this week and due by next Tuesday. I would anticipate that all the 19 schools will vote in favor of it.
That keeps us on track then.
That would then, that would allow us to fast track for 25-26. So.
Okay. Perfect. Moving on to approval of teacher contracts for 24-25.
Okay, so the statutes state that for teachers we need to release contracts by May 15th. The teachers then sign their contract by June 15th in order to accept their employment. And so this motion is, the next series of items here. So teacher contracts, support staff contracts, administrator contracts, and the summer school contracts. is just formal action by the board officially permitting us to release the contracts to the employees. That's so again, the timeline one is most important with the teacher contracts. There's not so much a statutory with the support staff, but this is the time of year that we do that. So.
All right, do I have a motion for teacher contracts?
I motion to approve teacher contracts.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. On to the approval of the support staff contracts for 24-25.
I move to approve.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Motion passes. On to the approval of administrator contracts for 24-25.
I move to approve admin contracts.
Do I have a second? So properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, approval of the 24 summer school contracts for teachers and support staff. I need a motion.
Same process, yeah.
Same process.
I move to approve the 2024 summer school contracts.
Thank you.
For teachers
Second.
and support staff.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. On to update of health insurance costs for 24-25.
All right, thank you. And I apologize. I don't know if I can put those all into one motion in the future. Not, I don't think I can.
No.
But sorry. Sorry. All right, health insurance. Again, we've discussed this informally. I've shared this in emails and so on, but really great news. So we've had the last 2 years unprecedented reductions in our insurance premium costs. And this year again, bracing for a big increase, and incredibly, we have a 0% increase on our health insurance premiums. So that's just wonderful news. Has to do with how well our staff is performing in terms of their, what do you call it? I'm losing the words right now. Basically, the experience of claims that they're having is definitely beating the community, what they call the community comparison. In our area, so that's wonderful news. That frees up, that's percentage of dollars that we now don't have to worry about, that we can commit elsewhere with our compensation or in other places. The one thing to be aware of is that there is an increase in the deductible. We are and Christy helped explain this to me better because she works in this, but. We are what's known as a high deductible plan. So right now we have a $3,000 individual, $6,000 family deductible, and so it has to move from $3,000 to $3,200, and from $6,000 to $6,350, and that's by law. That's by federal. The federal sets a minimum of what it has to be.
To be a high deductible
to be considered high deductible. So that's why that is. So that is the only. There'll be a cost there. But the premiums are staying at 0. So that's great news. No formal action, no motion needed or anything.
I said we were still lucky to be on the low end of high deductible.
Yeah.
We're not talking 5 digits.
Yeah.
So, all right. Then, approval of supplemental student accident insurance.
Okay, so this is the supplemental insurance that if a student, they get hurt playing a sport, they get hurt out at recess or FIAD class, or simply, maybe they burn themselves in science class or something like that. This would be a supplemental insurance that supplements the parents' own health insurance. So the great thing is the rate did not go up at all per student. It's a per student thing. It's $6 per student for pupil coverage, and then it's a set rate for athletic coverage, and those rates did not change at all. In fact, because of our enrollment declining a little bit, the total premium actually goes down a little bit from last year, a few dollars. So I would ask for your approval of that.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental student accident insurance renewal.
Okay.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. On to the review of the district hiring procedures.
Okay. if you want to, this has been a topic that was brought up and was requested to be looked at and discussed by the board. So we made a summary of our typical hiring practices, and if you are able to open up the first document there. And it was good for us to kind of go and like really analyze this and just kind of update, clean up the document that just here's exactly what we do. So we took it right from the beginning from a job vacancy. How is a vacancy created? Oftentimes it's through a resignation. So typically we then the vacancy comes or we post it many times after the resignation has been accepted by the board. A lot of them are, if it's a time urgent kind of thing, we don't wait till the board approval, but we wait, just as long as we have a resignation letter, and we do that. And I put the note in there, most of them nowadays seem to be that time urgent, just with the job market that we have in our world right now. Then we post right away. The other thing is if a new position is created, something we haven't had in the past, then we bring that to the board, of course, to seek approval and give a justification, a rationale why we need this position, and the board gives its approval to create it. And then the next phase would be posting of the job. So this is where we publicize and make sure that all applicants out there have an awareness and have an opportunity to apply if they're qualified. We typically post for a minimum of 2 weeks. At the bottom of this document is some policy language that I'll show you that kind of addresses that. Typically post for a minimum of 2 weeks. Again, depending on the timeline, sometimes we post it for longer. If it's February and it's a job that's for the next school year, we might post it for 3 weeks and really try to get a lot of candidates in. If it's August and school starts in 2 weeks, we might post it till fill. And if we get applicants in the first 2 days, we might bring them in and interview and make a move. So the posting for 2 weeks can be waived for extenuating circumstances. That would be an example of that. Timeliness, that's necessary. Okay. So if it's a teaching position, these are all the places that we publish it. So WeCan, which I can't remember what WeCan stands for, but it's the statewide network of, it's connected through the UW system, but it's the network of educator job posting. So it's pretty much what every public school uses for posting jobs. So WeCan is number one. That's where, if you're a teacher candidate looking for jobs, that's where you're looking, is on WeCan. We've put it on our district website as well. I don't think candidates are looking on our websites, but we have it there for official record of, hey, here's the posting and here's the job. But also it's a good reference to have it on our website, of course. I'm talking teaching jobs now. So post it in the staff lounges, a paper copy. We post it downtown in the post office and in the village office. And then I have optional if prudent. So we used to, I would say, put almost all of our teaching jobs in the paper, in the Amory Free Press. We've gotten away from that more because we learned we're not attracting teachers through the newspaper. We're attracting teachers through WeCan, online, Now, certain teaching jobs we still do put in the Free Press. If it's, maybe it's a long-term sub, you're trying to find a local person who's maybe a retiree, who's in the region or whatever. So then, we always talk about that and sometimes put it in the Free Press, but not always. Again, sometimes if prudent, we might put a teaching job on Facebook. Not always. Again, depends, on the situation. And again, sometimes we'll email teaching jobs out to district families and staff, and then sometimes we'll also do outreach to other, universities and stuff like that. So those are teaching positions. Teacher candidates kind of look in a different way. Support staff or coaches. Those we do, it's usually more local people, right? Someone who's living in or around the Clear Lake area. So those we do put in the Free Press because, in that local paper to get the word out locally. Put it on the district website, of course. Again, post the paper copies in the lounges, post office, village office. And then we have optional, but for basically it's become a default, like for these local postings when we're trying to hire support staff, we put it on our Facebook page. We email it out to our district families because that's several hundred families locally that are getting it. If a dozen of those share it with somebody that they know or pass it along to someone they know that's looking or might be qualified, that's really helpful. Same with staff. And sometimes other newspaper media, like we might put a more extended not just in the free press. We might, put an expanded reach like one of their advertisers or maybe another newspaper. However, we try to be prudent with that. Sometimes, that, okay, so you get an applicant who lives an hour away. How likely are they to come here, for a support staff job, or how likely are they to stick with us if they come here? So we always try to, use that judgment. But so those are the ways that we get it out there publicly, make it aware for people to know that they have the opportunity to apply and see if they're qualified.
So can you post coaching positions on weekend or no?
There's a section on weekend where you can do support staff positions. We have done it before, or like we'll post usually our athletic director position on there. If we posted coaching jobs on there, usually it's in conjunction with teaching jobs. So, right now this spring, hard knock there, we don't have any teaching openings right now. I'm glad about that. So that's the hard knocking on wood. So what we'll often do is, like, if we have 2 or 3 teaching jobs open, we'll typically include right in the teaching listing, looking for a head football coach or looking for a head track coach or whatever it might be. We will often do that.
I could just see after going to that CISA 11 presentation, maybe that's something that actually lures somebody in saying, oh, I could coach too.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think if there's a teacher opening, it makes sense to post them because a lot of teachers look at doing both.
Yeah, we typically, if we've got a coaching job or jobs, we typically will put in our posting on weekend if it's a specific one, or we'll just say candidates who within a willingness or ability to coach or advise co-curriculars are preferred or strongly encouraged. We always do that. Yep. Good questions.
So promoting from within is kind of encouraged through our teachers and stuff. Then I would assume.
With
sports teaching, can they get promoted to a different job before we go outside? Say if you had a teacher that wanted to move from grade school to high school,
yes,
that type of stuff.
And that's in that later on. I'll come to that. What that policy has on the bottom. Our handbooks talk about if someone wants to transfer, or I'm a custodian in the high school and I want to be a custodian in the elementary. If it's a parallel job, they can write a letter of request, and if we look at it and say, yeah, it's an equal job, we'll often just transfer them right over, and then the opening will be at the high school. So, yep. Every spring, elementary principal puts out an email saying, if anyone is interested in teaching a different grade level, kind of state your intention, or state your interest now. It doesn't commit you to anything. It just says, hey, I'd be maybe interested in moving to a different grade level. Things happen over the summer. It's nice for the principal to know, like, well, hey, Mr. Kamonic said he'd like to teach kindergarten if the chance ever came up, and then you could know, and so.
And even vice versa for teachers that want to be coaches, I would think we'd give them first chance, right?
I mean, we always look at who are the best applicants, but if it's a toss-up between a person who you've got 2 qualified candidates and one's on staff and one's not. I mean, it sure is nice to have our teachers coaching because they're here every day with the kids. They're walking the halls. It's the 6th hour, hey, practice got moved indoors and they need to get the word out, or, game got canceled tonight. So, yeah.
In all of our teacher interviews, one of the questions is what other things support around the district, whether it's clubs or sports or anything like that.
Right. And someone who's a trained educator tends to be good at working with kids, and that extends beyond the classroom.
Yeah, that was kind of the question.
Yeah, good. So, all right, so we post the job, we get the applicants, the screening process. I just have listed there, typically whoever is the department head or the administrator of that building or department or whatever reviews the application materials. If it's a big, let's say it's a principal or it's a superintendent position, there'll sometimes be a committee that looks at the applications together, so it's not just one person. I will say it's changed so much over the years. When I first started as a principal, when you'd get 100 applicants for a social studies or a FIED or an elementary ed job, or 200 maybe, and now when you get a much smaller number, the screening process is much quicker, and I don't want to say easier because I wish there were more candidates to look at sometimes, but it's, sometimes we feel good if we've got multiple candidates to look at even. So that screening process is kind of streamlined over the years. So, and then Sometimes we contact references ahead of time before the interviews. Sometimes we wait till the interviews and do it. But select candidates to interview. The administrator of the building or whatever is in charge of the hire. Usually is the one who makes the calls, schedules them, brings them in. And then we have interview committee. And again, it sort of depends on the situation, what type of position it is. Let's, if we're hiring a principal, or we're hiring, we've seen, like the superintendent process, you're involving all kinds of stakeholders. If it's, let's say we're hiring a new custodian or food service professional, tends to be a smaller committee. It's the food service director, probably the building principal, and maybe another person in the department. So, teaching jobs, it's typically the principal. It's typically a colleague, another fellow teacher, either grade level or the same department, and then oftentimes the superintendent, maybe the athletic director. Maybe again it is a situation where they're interested in a coaching position that we've got open too. So that's the makeup of the committee. Sometimes we'll bring in, rarely, a board member, sometimes or a parent or a community member. Not always, but that's sometimes done as well. So we definitely want to have, and I know for myself being a principal, superintendent, I want to have multiple voices in the room to get different perspectives, to know, people view people different ways and think to ask different questions different ways. So when we do the interviews, the leaders develop the interview questions. Again, usually get some input, ask the other people in the committee, hey, if you got any questions you'd really like to ask, feel free to pass them along, but then they set the questions. And then when we interview candidates, we follow the same questions for all the candidates. So we have them listed out, and everybody asks the same questions for the candidates. It's not like a robotic thing, though. Certainly it's a conversation. The candidate can ask questions. There's some back and forth. There's follow-up questions. We always want the candidate to be able to feel like they can ask questions of us and learn what they need to know about the job, too. So the committee gives their input and helps, kind of rank how they see the candidates. And then, it's the person who is the leader, going to be the supervisor of that person, kind of, has the final call, but they want to, always value the input of the committee. Usually there's a consensus, a lot of times there's a consensus. Hey, here's our first choice, here's our second choice, or maybe we have two candidates who are right with each other, and then the leader of the committee says, well, hey, I'm going to make some reference calls and make the decision that way. But ultimately, remembering that the person making the hire, they're the one who has to be responsible for evaluating, and if there's a problem, dealing with that. So they do need to have kind of a comfort level of who the final selection is. So after the interviews, then reaching out to the references and checking backgrounds, and then reaching out to the candidate to offer. And then sometimes there may be some negotiation involved depending on the position, if it's possible to do that. Oftentimes not. And then once we get an accepted offer, then reaching out to the other candidates that were interviewed to let them know that, hey, the position has been verbally accepted. And then start the process of onboarding with handing them off to Eve to start doing the paperwork and getting them official. And then all the records of the hiring process we file them, and we save those for whether it's 7 years or 5 years. I can't remember what the period of time is.
7.
It's 7. And we save those in a file, the questions that were asked and all the candidates, stuff like that. So that's what it looks like, from start to finish when we have a position. As far as relevant policies, I just pulled out of the support staff handbook and the teacher employee handbook, just like Corey, you had asked about the policy of transferring to a different job.
Yeah.
If they have a if it's a promotion, they would still need to apply. If it's a transfer, like to an equal position, if there's nobody in leadership feels like it's going to cause any, that's like, then just transfer over to the other position.
Yeah, just giving the teachers the first chance. We promoting within.
Yep. And then just that's in this policy here is where it talks about posting for 2 weeks. So it's not a board policy, but it's in our handbook that we post for 2 weeks typically. And again, it says for extenuating circumstances there can be exceptions made to that. Again, often it's because of the time crunch. So, and then also we have the only board policy that I can find that addresses hiring is. It's funny, it's about employment of personnel for co-curricular, extracurricular activities. And the second paragraph, district administrator will require that each person employed as a coach or activity sponsor has the appropriate qualifications, has been properly interviewed, and signs a co-curricular appointment letter specifying the stipend assigned with it. Any such appointment may be terminated by the board for any reason that is not arbitrary or capricious. So that's really the only board policy language directly about the hiring process.
So does everyone who takes on a co-curricular, extracurricular activity, club, sport, do they all sign a contract then too?
I don't. Yes, it's. I don't know if we call it a contract, but it's a
letter of agreement.
Yeah, I can't remember what we call it exactly. I guess it's a contract.
Yeah.
It's a document though saying.
But it is, yeah.
I'm going to be the baseball coach again this year. So. Any other questions about that or? Comments?
Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the consideration and the approval of offering Junior Warriors 4K wraparound childcare for no cost beginning in 24-25.
Okay, so this idea, and Mrs. Anderson, feel free to chime in at any point here. This has been an idea that's been talked about as far as expanding 4K to, full day, all day 4K, or expanding wraparound care in some way. As other districts around us, many of them have some sort of all-day option that's offered at no cost for families. Currently, they have half day of 4K. Parents can pick up, or daycare can pick up, or they can do daycare with our Junior Warriors program, our wraparound program, and pay, I think it's $15 a day for that other half of the day that they can stay in school. So the discussion, we've talked about the idea of all-day 4K. That is much more involved in terms, that's a lot of program changes and staffing changes and how the structure would look. But one way that we were discussing how to kind of move in that direction of offering an all-day option would be to simply take our current wraparound program and offer it for no cost. So I asked Mrs. Becker to dive a little bit into the revenue estimates. So that third document down below shows just rough revenue estimates for the last 3 years. And you see it's ranged anywhere from the mid 30,000, like 34,000, down to 27,000, up to 41,000. That's the revenue that's just for the wraparound program. Okay, so that was one thing to look at. The other thing is the middle document, or second document. Part of the reason for the discussion is looking at, are we losing students not enrolling in our junior kindergarten because of the pay for 4K wraparound? And so, we've seen some, especially in the last couple of years, not as bad this year, but we've seen some significant open enrollment out of JK. Now, can we guarantee that all those are because of daycare, or that would all be changed by this? No, we can't guarantee that. But again, we're looking at the districts that surround us offering all-day options and feeling like we're maybe a little bit out of step with that. So now, what's the cost benefit of this? The hope would be that we would continue to attract families to want to have their kids enroll here. And once they start here, they tend to want to stay here. Once they start somewhere else, they tend to want to stay somewhere else. So the hope would be that we would stem some of the loss of open enrollment. Of course, the cost, we'd be losing some revenue. Part of what I included in the packet here too is a couple of things to consider that makes me feel like we could perhaps do this. Number one is we have a fairly significant fund balance in Fund 80 right now. So we've carried a fund balance of over $90,000 in Fund 80 last year and this year. Not that we want to, overspend or spend down our fund balance, but that does provide us some cushion to perhaps transition. And then also one thing to consider is that we have levied $30,000 into Fund 80, Community Ed, for as long as anyone can remember. Lori's been here for 17 years, I've been here for 17, 18 years. I think it predates either of us. We have levied $30,000 into Fund 80 for a long, long time. We've not gone up, we've not budged on that. So one thought is that we could, over a couple-year period, we could step that up a little bit. I wouldn't double it or anything like that to make up all the revenue, but perhaps we step it up the first year and a little bit the second year to allow us to kind of offset some of that loss. And again, we have the fund balance in Fund 80 that I think could help us smooth that over a couple of years. So those are, I think, the points to consider. Other thoughts, questions, or ideas from the board?
Well, so we're talking about how much of a difference per year that it would cost us, like, in revenue.
So
40,000.
somewhere in the over the last 3 years, it's been 34,000, 27,000, and 41,000.
So if we capture one or two more students, that basically washes it, right?
Well, we need to get. Each student in theory is about $11,325.
About.
But it's not that simple. But
Yeah,
Right.
3, 4 students.
so
3.5.
And if you capture half of that 25 year.
And I think it's a huge bonus to the community.
well, and I would also say if you capture a few of those students for 1 year, but for 13 years, how much
Right.
is that?
Right.
How much is that? 30,000 over 13 years. That's another part to consider, I'd say.
So when you're saying there's 7 students for 24, 25, is that with the pre-K that we just did the pre-K testing for? That would
This would be
potentially-
no. This is the current. Wait, let me look.
Would be the current 4K.
This would be applicants for.
Oh.
No, this is 23, 24. This is the kids who are currently in JK.
Right, but 24, 25, it says currently 7 students enrolled.
Where are you looking? Where are you seeing
At
that?
the very
Estimated
bottom.
revenue on the very bottom. So is that the pre-K testing we did this spring? And
Oh, that's-
7 kids have said they would,
7 kids are wanting to do wraparound. Yep.
okay,
That will
Yep.
pay.
that would
when
be
they pay
brand
for
new
it.
students next fall.
Yeah.
And that they're going to would like to do wraparound.
Wraparound. Yep. And
And that's who said they would pay. There could be more that would do
that
it.
it may
that not
maybe it'll
pay.
jump up if it's free. Yep.
How many students total right now are we looking at pre-K next fall?
32.
32 registered so far. I would anticipate that'll go up a little bit to at least 30. It always seems like we have 3 or 4 more over the summer.
What happens if you get 15? What happens for staffing?
That's about that number where we start to. That's about where we'd start to look at it.
So we're talking, we're still paying $15 per student per day, is what we're doing?
It's
or
up to
are we
19.
It's
19
19
next year.
Or are we
next year.
creating a salary?
Well, we've already got the staff, so the staff's already there. So it would just be this would just be revenue we're losing. We're not
Okay, so
getting.
it's just costing us the revenue?
Yeah, it's just costing us the revenue.
Okay.
Yep. I wouldn't anticipate new staffing, but if we get up to 15 or more, then that would be we'd have to look at that. But we're only going to have 16 in a section,
Right.
So.
I'm ready to vote.
The last 2 years, we've lost 19 students, so you keep half them.
Yeah, if we could keep a half or a third of those.
I think it's the right step to keep our enrollment steadier. Or hope to curb.
Okay. Do we have a motion, or do we need more discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the offering of junior Warriors 4K wraparound childcare at no cost.
I'll second.
All right. It's properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Now on to the approval of Elevate K-12 agreement for Spanish teaching for 24-25.
So, the cost has gone up, what, $800 from last year. Mr. Melberg would be doing, 3 sections?
2.5.
2.5
Our eighth
sections.
grade is just half the year.
Yep.
So asking for the same as we did last year, except this year we do 2 sections of Spanish 1 because the interest is there. And Spanish 2, we were able to use our ITV. Mr. Crawford teaches some ITV classes. Therefore, our kids can take those ITV classes for free. And there's a Spanish 2 offering, and we're able to fit those kids into that. So I was able to take Spanish 2 out of this proposal, but I wanted to add a section of Spanish 1 because we had that much student interest in Spanish 1.
That's our bubble too, right? For
That's our bubble
enrollment?
coming through, yeah. So I would anticipate, I would think next year it'd probably be back down to 1 section of Spanish 1, but we'll see.
Would we add back in Spanish too then? Possibly.
Possibly, but if our numbers jump of the number of kids that will go from Spanish 1 to Spanish 2, and then I'd go back to this because with the ITV, there's usually only so many seats available.
Just wondering if that bubble as they get older goes.
After
The
finishing
bubble
1 this year, a
Yeah.
bunch of them want to take 2 next year. Mhm.
The bubble very specifically is our freshman class, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sophomores
Just-
are decent
We
sized.
just keep saying stuff like that. Everybody
Yeah.
listening is gonna be like, what
Yeah.
bubble are they talking about?
Sophomores are decent sized too, but our freshman class is quite large compared to everybody around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
But I would anticipate when we come back next May, if we continue with Elevate, which at this point I'd like to, is I can see us doing 2 sections, or a section of Spanish 1 and 1 of Spanish 2, and then maybe having some kids in the ITV type thing. So I'm trying to keep the proposal as consistent as possible.
So are you still leaving open consideration for a teacher filling that position, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've gone back and forth. I mean, right now, it would only be about a 0.3 position unless we're able to find something to pair it up with,
Right.
and then that takes a unique individual, but I will post it again next year.
Sure.
Do we have a motion?
Yep. I move to approve the Elevate for K through 12 agreement on Spanish teaching 24-25.
I'll second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And on to board policy updates and approvals, our first reading.
Okay, I think, I'm confident we can move through this very quickly. It's first reading. These policies are pretty, I'll say bland, or pretty, you know, so the first one that we're rescinding is, just so you know, the tutoring for credit appears in educational options 2370. That's why. So it's addressed in that policy. That's why they're rescinding it. Otherwise, it's definitions of, you know, different parts of the board, administrative guidelines, board bylaws, just, you know, all those definitions. And, you know, what are the board powers, talks about conflict of interest, the different, you know, updating the position of clerk. Family and medical leave absence, you guys might recall, we approved those earlier this winter or fall. And when I went through with our rep from Neola, there was a spot in there that they know we had missed one of the choices, and it was left green, and he's like, no, you actually had to make a choice here, and we didn't catch that. So we just went through and cleaned that up a little bit. So there's family medical leave for teachers, support staff, and administration. That's why there's 3 of those. I don't know if there's any of them that you want to.
Do we really want to do for family medical leave a fiscal year running from July to the following June? The only reason why I ask is everywhere I've ever worked uses a rolling 12 months. Because what could happen if you use July 1 to June 30th is you have 12 weeks of leave from July 1 to June 30th. That July 1, you take another 12 weeks. Somebody could technically have 24 weeks
In 1 year.
in 1 calendar year.
We can look at that. Let me look at that more between
it's
now and the
just-
next
I'm
meeting.
Just gonna
I guess
say rolling.
It was my understanding is if it's the fiscal year, that would I thought that would prevent that from.
Because once you
Reset.
start July 1, you reset that clock.
Mhm.
So they could
Rolling, it has
March,
to come
April,
off.
and May, and then they could take August, September, October.
Yes.
Yeah.
That could open. That could be a principal nightmare.
Yeah. I'll look at, yeah, well, let me look at that.
Yeah,
That's first
I was-
reading, good question. Yeah, let me look at that. Eve and I will look at that. Good question. Are there any other ones that you guys want to, if you had a chance to look at them ahead of time? Health education, that one just kind of clarified some of the language about how it's worded. Students being able to opt out of instruction in physiology, hygiene, effects of controlled substances. And then it was what sort of responsibilities you're going to allow the teacher to apply for, like doing alternate assignments to that. So. Very minor, for example, the independent education evaluation, the only change in there is the line, if the district determines the cost exceeds the cost criteria, the district must, without unnecessarily delay, initiate a due process hearing to demonstrate the cost did not meet appropriate agency criteria. So it's just very kind of mundane procedural kind of language. It's not like sweeping changes in how we do things. So first reading. So great point taken, Christy, with FMLA. Good question for us to look at.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which way. I just
No, that's a
didn't know.
great point. Appreciate your HR background in that input there.
Anybody else need more time before we move on to superintendent notes?
Okay.
The wonderful things that are happening.
Yeah, so I'll go really fast. I'll speed talk. Year-end budget stuff, we're knee deep in that. Membership audit got complete a few weeks ago. Spring sports are coming down the home stretch here. We've had some celebrations of student success with state forensics, FFA banquet, state solo and ensemble choir students. We had prom, we had Earth Day, very successful, both of them. High school parent-teacher conferences. We had in-service on May 3rd and trained our staff on CPR, AED, and first aid. I also had a retirement planning consultant come in from WEA and talk to the staff. That was very well received. All that was very well received. So a little different approach. It wasn't an academic focus, but it was well received. We had School Staff Appreciation Week last week. I want to thank Pillar Bank and Kate's Coffee Coop for the coffee before school on Monday and Friday. Pretty cool. Brickfire and multiple sponsors also offered pizza the Friday before during in-service. And Clear Lake PTO, parent-teacher organization, gave a free lunch to both buildings staffs on Wednesday of last week. So awesome, little awesome gestures like that. And the admin team, we did some things and donuts and different treats and stuff like that. So just a nice, some small gestures to show our appreciation for our staff. track and field day for the elementary on Wednesday. Of course, this week, all about the seniors and graduation as well. So we got award night Wednesday night, and rehearsal and ceremony Friday night. So a reminder, so Corey and Christy, you guys are handing out diplomas, right?
Yep.
And Christy, you're doing a little welcome at the beginning.
Yep.
So I've got diplomas to sign, and let's see. So you're the clerk now.
I am.
Yeah.
So you get to sign. Yeah, get your hand ready. And then I'll have our president come in this week, and I'll get him to sign them as well. So if you want to. And
That's it?
all the news is fit to print right now. So.
All
Can we
right.
get that coffee truck in-house more? My kids were so excited to get to school that morning.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
I've never seen them so early.
That's same here. I
Do
told-
you want them that well caffeinated forever?
The amount of tardies we had, I'm not a fan.
Really? I've never seen my kids that early, ready. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? It's 7:30. We gotta go.
And also, by the way, Dad, can I have $6?
Principal.
Yeah, it was. I warned her. I said you're gonna get a lot of high school students on Friday, so that was
Yeah.
well liked.
All right, well then that moves us into our contemplated closed session pursuant with Wisconsin statute 19.851C. The board will discuss staffing and staff compensation. Let me pull the board, Nellie. Yes. Corey.
Yes.
Christie, yes. Matt.
Yep.
Okay. We are soon to be officially in closed session.
Thanks, everybody. Oh yeah, and I'll make sure I log you off just in case.
I should have bet you that we weren't going to be done in an hour. I was very confident
I was too.
that it was not going to be an hour. I was confident the other way.
I know that it was not going to. We
It was not you. I'm like, we have N. It goes to.
Okay.
All right, we are back in open session. I am looking for a motion on teacher support, administrator, and co-curricular compensation.
I'll make a motion to approve the following for the 24-25 school year. Teacher salary increases of 4% for each cell of current salary schedule with no $1,000 non-base building payment for step Z at the end of the year. Support staff wage increase of 4% per position. Paraprofessional wage increase of 11.4%. Administration salary increase of 4%, and co-curricular coaches and advisors salary increase of 4%.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Any future agenda items?
A board retreat date that we talked about, if we want to do that this summer, we should get it on the calendar.
Yeah.
I've got two, just for the board to be aware. We'll have some, end of year. We'll have some curriculum purchases here, a reading curriculum in the June, perhaps some other textbooks as well, and other spend downs at the end of the year here to hopefully approve. So.
Okay, all right. And next up, I need an adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. We are adjourned.